going on, Wolfpack Nation? Thank you so much for tuning in here. So we got another exciting episode here. As we're going to be breaking down the women's basketball tournament here. Obviously, as of today, so when this episode is recording, first of all, this episode, if you are seeing this episode, that means that the NCAA women's basketball team's in the Sweet 16, and that is what we expected. Obviously, we wanted to do, first of all, obviously a wrestling preview, but obviously they're only one weekend, but women's basketball is multiple weekends. And also, too, we felt very confident that obviously we're going to be here with our women's team in the Sweet 16, which is why we're doing it the way we are. So basically for today, obviously we're going to be talking more hypothetical, since obviously we're recording this again the week before, so we don't know. I mean, there definitely could be some upsets, and again, we're going to be talking a little bit about the bracket, but also too talking more player by player. Talk about thoughts, expectations. Who, especially heading into that Bridgeport regional. So again, we're just going to be kind of hyping through all of that. So, but before we get rolling, though, make sure again, if you haven't already, make sure again hit that subscribe button again, so that way make sure you don't miss out on any new NC State content. Give this video a like, so that way YouTube will put this in front of more NC State fans, and also to give us a follow, Tuffy Talk now if you haven't already. But so again, I mean, once again, I want to say again, obviously, if we're not in Sweet 16, nobody is seeing this, but I mean, it'll definitely be a disappointment that all of this was done for no reason. But again, we feel very confident that we're going to be there, especially too, because I mean, don't really know too much about Longwood, but I don't think I think we were talking beforehand that no 16 seeds ever beaten a 1 seed before, and then on top of it, the 8-9 seeds that we're facing. We've pretty much we've played them both before, handled them both pretty easily. So hopefully we should be able to do it again in front of a sold out NC State crowd. But so Megan, let me start off with you here. So, so looking at this bracket, we'll go ahead and talk, kind of a little bit of hypothetical here, because I mean, so just to kind of go down here. So obviously you got UConn number 2, you got Indiana number 3, and then you got Oklahoma number 4. But for each of those seats, I see definitely one team that I think, as of this recording, could be there instead of that top seed. Like, for example, I think that for Oklahoma, I think Notre Dame is definitely going to give them a fight, and then Kentucky should give Indiana a fight, and UCF. I think those are 3 teams that could definitely make a run, and we can see down the road. I mean, is there any one of those specifically that you kind of maybe put more stock into, or maybe one that I haven't mentioned that you kind of put some stock into as well?
I think I'm just I like what Georgia Tech is doing, has done in the ACC. I know we haven't watched a lot of women's basketball on the other, besides whoever NC State's played, but I mean, they're playing Kansas. I realize Georgia Tech's only a 9 seed, but they have Stanford matched up early. But I could see that being an upset against Kansas and then pushing Stanford. I don't see them beating Stanford, but it's an interesting matchup. I do think Virginia Tech, the way they've played, they should beat Florida Gulf Coast. They're going to get matched up against probably Maryland. I can see that being a nice run, but a team that I also like to see it again. It's not really an upset, I would say, but I like Notre Dame, but I like LSU. I like, obviously everybody likes Kentucky because that one girl who can really, really shoot, but I don't really know of anybody that I'm really seeing that sticks out as like wow, they're really going to push somebody else. I mean, unless I don't know. I mean, I look at Charlotte, Indiana. Charlotte's in North Carolina school, takes pride. I don't know how good they are, but yeah. Other than the schools, just a general like, okay, I could see an upset here and there, but I don't see, and honestly don't know a ton enough about some of these lower seeds to know who's going to push you. So yeah, that's my thoughts.
And because one thing too, and Greg, I kind of want to say this to you as well, is that I know that again, so as of today, we had Wes Moore was on AC Network this morning, and one of the things that he was talking about obviously Packer and Durham, they brought up definitely obviously the less than expected or wanted situation of where basically we're facing UConn in Connecticut, and then Wes Moore basically went on a I guess a rant a little bit, basically saying it's common sense that, first of all, that he honestly thought that UConn should be a 1 seed. That I mean that their net rate ranking was number 4 in the country. They also he also mentioned about how the NCAA committee takes into account injuries, and they played most of the season and won most of those games without their reigning National Player of the Year, Paige Beckers. And so to him, it was like, especially since Louisville got beat by Miami in the first round of their conference tournament, and then Baylor lost by 9 to Texas in their championship game, that it seemed common sense to him that UConn should have been a 1 seed. I mean, do you agree with him on that? That there was a definite, it almost like it was a conversation piece basically, that UConn could have been that fourth number 1 seed.
Yeah, I mean, they had 7 losses, so if you maybe got it down to 5, the argument's probably a better solid argument.
Mm-hmm.
7's a stretch, so I don't know. Here's the really the big thing for me is, and we kind of talked about it off air with regards to the men's thing, and we won't get too far, but Buzz Williams with Texas A&M, he straight up is like, what is the criteria? And so if coaches don't really truly know the criteria, and this is the argument that's had every year on the men's and probably on the women's side as well, trying to find and nitpick what is that criteria. Is it the net? Is it the RPI? Is it the palm, Ken Palm, scale, and what all these computers do? It becomes really hard to figure it out. So if you're doing it strictly eye test and in these so-called committee experts, 7's a little too far for me. A little too far.
Yeah. Well, because one of the things too with it too, like, he was saying that, like, it's almost sad because he actually made a comment basically saying like, well, I guess we should have lost more games. Like, and it's like, dang, that is sad. Like, the coach is literally like, I mean, maybe if we have lost in the AC championship, or maybe if we have lost against, Louisville or something like that, then maybe we would have been the 4th seed and not having to play Connecticut at UConn. Now, obviously, all this is not excuses by any means. I want to make that very clear. None of this is excuses. It's just simply that, again, it's just like you have people that are making these decisions, so it should just be common sense. Like, why should we send UConn to their town as a 2 seed? That doesn't make sense. That's not common sense. So that's really kind of was his biggest thing. I mean, Michael, do you agree with that at all? I mean, again, because it's not an excuse. It's just common sense.
Yeah, it's more about, that our team put in the effort, during the whole season, the regular season, to earn that 1 seed, because you expect to get rewarded for it in the tournament by, not having to play basically a road game as the number 1 seed. And so it's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Seeds shouldn't be lifetime achievement awards.
No, they shouldn't be. You're 100% right on that. You're 100% right. Yeah. And especially too, because I mean, it's again, it's an annoyance factor because, again, I understand basically they were talking about the S curve, like, it should work its way down. But again, we honestly, like, let me ask you guys, like, and I mean, we could talk, just say yes or no over each other. But if the NCAA committee told you, hey, I'll let you and Louisville swap places, and you guys are the 4 seed, and then we'll give Louisville the 3 seed, would you take it?
I mean,
wait, say that one more time. Make sure I got it straight.
Then we're not.
So meaning that
we're not in Bridgeport.
Would if you were given the option, would you rather switch places with Louisville and be the 4 seed and have Baylor as your 2 seed and all that jazz? Basically, have Louisville's path instead of our path, because, again, I mean, I think arguably we have probably one of the toughest paths out there, because also too, there's going to be a lot of people that have their eyes on us because they know that we are the team to beat right now.
So we would switch with Louisville. Is that what you're asking, right?
Correct.
Yeah, go to Spokane, or no, Wichita.
I mean,
yeah, Spokane's.
I would, but I mean,
I wouldn't.
I mean, I don't know. The other thing is that the way it's set, our bracket set up, is that it's we could play a lot of teams we've already played, which doesn't really make sense either.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd rather play them because we already have a feel for them.
Part of me is like, I kind of know what to expect with that. It's still closer to home, even though it's against UConn. To me, again, my thing comes back to the women's team. Like, you're dominant enough. You've gone into tough environments. You went to South Carolina last year and won. You went to all these other road games.
Yep.
You can do it. You've done it before. It's just sucks the NCAA didn't consider the fact that you would be putting you in a 2-seed UConn territory.
Yeah.
They should have put UConn in another bracket somewhere else. And that's on them. No one's going to own up to it and say, "Oh, well, we shouldn't have done that." But that's I don't know. I wouldn't switch necessarily because playing farther away, less fan support, traveling takes a little bit of a toll. Although you are going to still have to go up to Connecticut. I don't know. I wouldn't want to trade personally.
Well,
I wouldn't. It's a harder path. If you're flipping them, that means you're playing South Carolina in the semifinals of the Final Four instead of a championship game.
That's true too.
So,
and a couple other things too, which was kind of interesting is so technically, again, we only have 3 losses this year. 2 of them are actually at home. So technically, we've done better on the road than we have at home. Now, obviously, I think that you can make the argument that we face tougher teams at home, playing number 1 South Carolina, and then at the time number 16 or whatever it was Georgia. But still, you can make that case. But yeah, again, just like Michael or Macon, I'm sorry, whoever it was that was said it, about, I think it was Macon, beating number 1 South Carolina at South Carolina last year, that you have that whole team back. And again, so it's not a matter of them being nervous or whatsoever, I think, for this environment. And I think honestly it will piss them off a little bit, being like, okay, like,
a little chip.
Yeah. So, but because one other interesting storyline as well that I thought is, obviously, if Indiana upset UConn, it would set up a interesting, I guess, make it up game for last year, because Indiana was a team that knocked us out last year. And also too, with the fact that their assistant coach is former NC State women's basketball player Ashley Williams, I think is her last name, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
Ashley Williams.
Yeah, she went to you talking about, who'd you say it was from Indiana?
Ashley, yeah, she went to Greenhope.
She played at Greenhope. She played at Greenhope High School.
Played Greenhope High School. So, yep. And then also too, on the other side, I would say, what a perfect way, because all right, so if I were to ask anybody that knows maybe a little bit about sports, who's the most famous women's basketball team in the country in college basketball? UConn.
You're going to say either Tennessee or UConn.
UConn, but like over the past 10 years, it's been UConn. They've
UConn.
They've been the team.
They've made the Final Four since 2008.
Alabama football and women's basketball, it's generally UConn. Like,
right.
Yeah.
So Tennessee is almost like like the Auburn or Michigan kind of thing.
They've been to the Final Four 13 straight years.
Wow, unbelievable.
That's crazy.
That's crazy. Before we continue, I want to take a quick second to tell you about our sponsor, Flatlands Jessup Insurance Group, that has your whole world covered, with agents in 5 offices throughout eastern North Carolina to help you decide how much coverage you need. Offering policies for home and auto, recreational vehicles, commercial, crop, health, life, and employee benefits. They are able to combine options to find a comprehensive solution that works for you. Flatlands Jessup protects the things you love so you can spend less time worrying and more time enjoying them. Find them on Facebook and Instagram at Flatlands Jessup. You can also visit their webpage at www.flatlandsjessup.com. So please make sure to go and check them out. So my point exactly is that it's like, okay, like, especially with this team and what this team is trying to prove this year, because again, I truly do believe, and I'm not going to say the probablys and all that jazz, I do truly believe that this team can come out of this situation beating more likely UConn, facing them in Connecticut, and then probably end up facing maybe Stanford, and then beating South Carolina. If they can win this national championship, there's no doubt in my mind, honestly, after that they're the best women's basketball team that's ever played at NC State. That
would be our only. It would be our only championship. So that's a hands down.
Sure, but I also would say as well as again, how could you really put together a tougher road than this road that now women have to go on? Because literally from the moment the Sweet 16 starts, it's tough. Because again, you're just like I think Michael was saying on the live stream, saying that basically you have to play 2 away games because obviously UConn will cheer for whoever we're facing, so more likely I guess Oklahoma, but could be Notre Dame as well, which that would be interesting, seeing a bunch of UConn people cheering for Notre Dame. So but that was kind of my 2 cents, where it's like, at the end of the day, it's a perfect story that, if we can win it all, and we said, hey, we went through UConn in UConn.
But hey,
That's beautiful.
Yeah, but my thing is too. Again, this is all the assumption that UConn is going to make it to the final, to the Elite Eight.
Indiana
I mean, it's
could beat them. Definitely.
Like Indiana, Kentucky could really beat them if they really.
Kentucky, yeah.
You know, who's the other team? Indiana, Kentucky, and
UCF.
yeah, it's basically
UCF.
UCF's not a bad team.
Yeah,
No.
so I mean, they're not. It's I think one of the more exciting matchups.
I think they beat them a couple years ago.
In the round of 32 is going to be that Indiana Kentucky game. I think it's going to be a
for
really
sure.
good game to watch for women's basketball. But
It's
no,
kind of one of those grudge
we're just
matches,
assuming we're just assuming that they're just going to walk right through them, and I just don't think that's the case.
No. Again, I would not be surprised whatsoever if one of those top 4 seeds does not join us in Bridgeport. And
again, guys, hey, we have a pretty tough bracket too. So ours not going to be good. But the thing we're coming up with, what Greg was saying, we've played these teams before, and so the game plan we had worked, and we have notes from last time. Now, granted, they have notes on us, but our talent is still just better than theirs, so we should be able to take care of business.
And again, we have the home court.
So we also
let's use it to our advantage.
We also have Westmore as probably one of the best preparation coaches in women's basketball, maybe hands down. Seriously,
I still think about Ace Koenig making that comment that he would sleep sometimes at work because he was studying, or at night he would be sleeping. His wife would just find him at his office.
Yep, but also,
did you guys see the?
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say. I think it was Sunday night. Brandon Miller, who's one of the assistant coaches, really cool dude. They had all the laptops out in their office.
Yep.
I think he had I think it was him and another assistant. They were breaking down film, and I think I counted 8 laptops that they were working off of.
Wow.
So just trying to crunch and everything. So
whoever it is,
there's no doubt.
Well, because he said on the interview with Packer and Durham that basically they put together a scouting report for all 4 teams. They've already worked on a scouting report for every single team. So again, but also too, on top of it, that again, this team is going to come out all hands on deck. Like literally, I truly do believe that this year there's not. I just have a gut feeling that every single game in this tournament, if the team beats us, it's not going to be because we had an off day. I truly do believe it's going to come down to do they want it more, or / do they play better than. Are they better than us? Simple as that. Because, I mean, I just feel like that there's too much on the line for this team. This team is too deep. It's too experienced. It's too talented. And we also have too many chips on our shoulder to get back, from getting knocked down in the Sweet 16. And so I just don't see us not being ready.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I don't I don't see us getting upset. Like if I'm feeling the same way. If we lose, I think it's going to be to another number 1 seed or a 2 seed at most.
Yeah. Because I mean, also too, think about this interesting situation. What if we face again? I'm saying again, what if? I'm not saying we're going to get there, but I'm saying, imagine if we made it to the national championship game, facing South Carolina. So that means, because I mean, I think we were one of the first games in women's basketball to start the season with NC State versus South Carolina. So how interesting would it be that one of the first games of the year, one of the last games of the year, is NC State versus South Carolina?
It'd be kind of poetic in that regard.
Yeah.
So that'd be cool. I mean, I just don't want to look past potentially having played Notre Dame or Oklahoma in our bracket. So when you say that you don't think, personally for me, like if you say the reason this team doesn't lose because they just had a down day, I actually think the reason we would lose is if we just are kind of like just walk in. Maybe hopefully we don't think that way. And I don't think Coach Moore would let the team play that way, but I've seen the team just kind of just not hit their shots. And that's, I mean, I think they could lose just because they had about now. I think it will take State losing a game that takes a combination of the other team playing great and us playing poorly. I think it'll take both for us to lose. Yeah. And even in those situations, we're still pretty close in a game anyways. That just shows you how talented we are compared to other teams. But I'm not going to – I want to make sure Notre Dame ain't going to be – Notre Dame's got a historical team too. I realize the same coach is not there, but they're not going to be easy. Oklahoma's not going to be easy. I'm curious who you are most concerned about in our bracket besides UConn, because we've been talking UConn. So
before that, I want to give how we lose, because you guys were kind of talking about it. We lose, we don't hit threes, and and Cunane gets in foul trouble. That's the recipe for losing the game.
I would say that's the biggest thing because again, one thing to keep in mind is, I mean, definitely like in the game of basketball, typically you're going to have some guys that are not really shooting well today. You got some that are shooting well today. So I guess my point is basically saying, I mean, you have basically 8 or 9 players that you could put in any one point. So I feel confident enough in this team that there's 5 players that are feeling it today that could be on that floor and take care of business. Now, but I do agree with you, Greg, on that aspect, saying that Cunane's got to stay out of foul trouble, and so that's why I would say too that, I mean, again, we've relied on Camille Hobby so much, but I think she's going to be a huge X factor as well. That again, can she play well enough that she can take some minutes and keep Cunane and
fresh.
Keep her fresh. Only have her in situations that we need her. Like, that's really my biggest thing. I mean, Cunane's had a lot of games this year where she started off slow, but then she'll get it going, as we head into the second half. So, but I do agree with you. So let's talk about that. So in terms of teams,
question,
teams that, curious about. I mean, I mentioned them from the get-go, saying, I mean, Kentucky to me is a huge X factor. I mean, they just won the SEC championship. They just went
hottest
through
team.
A lot of teams. They went through Tennessee. They went through LSU.
I don't think you can assume UConn's just going to win and beat them.
No,
Kentucky's won 10 in a row, and that's what you want to be, right? You want to be hot in March.
That's why
I mean that. Yep. That's the check in the box.
That Kentucky Indiana game is going to be very, very fun to watch.
Yeah, those teams hate each other anyway, just because of geography.
Yeah. So it's a great point too. That's a great point too.
Yeah. So,
ahead, I was just gonna say the team. If I had to pick one team, besides UConn at least in our region, I might say Notre Dame, just because they were the only ACC team to beat us, and they figured it out. And I mean, we
still should have won that game.
We should have.
We still should have won, but
we did.
Yeah. Well,
other than that, also Kentucky. They're probably the hottest team in the country.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. If you're picking anyone above a 4 seed, right? Because I mean, obviously the 4, if everything runs chalk, so
right.
If you're not going chalk, it's either Notre Dame or Kentucky. I 100% agree with that.
I'm going to call some out too. Just a really random thought. I just thought about this. South Carolina is in that round 64 game, should win, but they have to play a pretty hot Miami team potentially if Miami can win round 64 too.
Yeah,
that would be really
that's
interesting.
A great point.
So, obviously that's on the totally other side. We wouldn't have to deal with them, but I would be on
I'm okay with not having to
watch
deal with them
right there if they have to play. If they have to play Miami, I would be on upset watch for the 1 seed at round 32.
Yeah, once they got back their leading scorer, she was injured early part of the year, and and we played them right as she was starting to get her groove. So thankfully, we played them before Miami got really hot. So, but that's a really great point. Really great point.
Yeah, absolutely. And because one other matchup I want to point out as well is I wouldn't be surprised if we're sitting here right now and Virginia Tech is preparing to play Stanford in the Sweet 16. Honestly.
Oh yeah, no, I wouldn't either. But there's one girl on their team. I can't remember. She's got the braids. That probably is like half.
Aisha Shepard.
Aisha
maybe
Shepard.
She's the one that's just really fiery.
That's really their two head pieces. Aisha Shepard and Elizabeth Kitley. Those are her two main weapons.
That's their cogs.
Yep. Yeah. So they're the real deal. And I mean, I think. And I think too. I mean, they saved Kitley, out of the ACC tournament, to keep her fresh for NCAA. So I think it's kind of one of those things where it's like, if they don't make it to Sweet 16, it's almost like, really, we saved Kitley for that, so that's kind of one of my points to it, really, as well. I mean, she was a third team All-American. She's a real deal, the ACC Player of the Year. So
But I think Macon, you're right. Because didn't Shepard become the all-time 3-point for the whole ACC, or was it just Virginia Tech?
All
ACC, right?
All ACC.
Yeah, she's my favorite player to watch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so if she gets on fire, the 3 ball is the ultimate weapon, right? I mean,
that's how Duke has won
it cancels
men's basketball so many years. Duke is counted on the 3.
Yep. Yeah, but see, again, you live and die by it, right? So
You live and die by
if you're,
it.
and here's the thing about women's basketball, like it's a weird, like the way women shoot, it's either hitting the back of the iron, kicking out a long rebound for running down the court the other way, or it's an air ball. Like it's usually one of those two combinations. It's not a great recipe, but if you're missing them, if you're missing them long, that's breakouts for the other team, and that's easy buckets. So, so because I've seen that way too many times. Like State has run so many breakouts with long three misses. So that's something to keep an eye on.
Yep, that's true too. All right, Wolfpack Nation. Well, we're going to have to take a pause right there with part 1 here of this preview here. So once again, please make sure again to tune in back with us here as we continue this conversation with part 2. And also, again, make sure you hit that subscribe button so that way you do not miss out when we release part 2 of this discussion. And also, make sure please help us by giving this video likes. That way more State fans see this video. And give us a follow, Tuffy Talk Now on Twitter and Instagram. But thank you all so much. And hey, as always, go Pack, y'all.